Hi everybody, Jody here with Funerals Your Way. I wanted to introduce the interview that you're about to see. I was very humbled and privileged to meet Sher. She is the Executive Director of Trauma Intervention Programs of San Diego, TIP San Diego. I know one of the things that helps us and helps me in particular do the job that I do is knowing that there are people out there that we can talk to that understand sometimes how difficult it can be dealing with people in trauma and people in grief. The interview was very eye-opening for me and gave me a great deal of faith in humanity, in realizing that there are people that volunteer to help others. They choose to do this, and that's something I find very impressive and admirable. Now, during the interview, we did have a bit of a technical problem. I look rather silly, but Cher looks beautiful. The video stopped, but the audio continues. So I hope that you learn to appreciate TIP San Diego as I have, and here's the interview. Hi everybody, Jody here with Funerals Your Way. I am privileged to have with us today Cher with Trauma Intervention Program of San Diego, TIP San Diego. And this is a program that is absolutely amazing, and I have tremendous admiration for Cher and for the people that she works with. So Cher, tell us a little bit about your program.
Thank you, Jody. Trauma Intervention Program is a nonprofit that was formed here in San Diego 37 years ago by psychologist Wayne Fortin, who found that many of his patients were suffering from what he coined to be secondary trauma. And that trauma arose as a result of how they perceived they were treated on scene by first responders, nosy neighbors, passersby, family members even, when they weren't having their needs met, and specifically those needs were, they felt they weren't being cared for. First responders, fire personnel, they come in, they do life-saving techniques. Law enforcement comes in, they're doing an investigation, trying to figure out exactly what happens. And all the while, the family is sort of just sitting off to the side, and no one is really paying attention to them other than asking them questions. So he felt that if ordinary, voluntary citizens could be called to the scenes to spend time with those family members, and specifically spend time just for them, we are there just for those family members, then they'll feel cared for. And that truly has made a world of difference.
I can see where it would. It's when you talk about secondary trauma, that makes a great deal of sense.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen situations where people are relegated to the background in a situation that oftentimes is one of, if not the most traumatic situations that they have ever been in. And that's got to be incredibly difficult. So thank you again for everything that you do.
Of course. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I'm just still partly very grateful that, as you had mentioned before, that I have not had need for your services, but having friends that have been in situations and experienced what you were just talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the biggest things that they have discussed, and even in work here, the way that they have been treated. So that's amazing.
Right.
We say "yehan," which means you've made my heart feel glad, and you've brought joy to me. So knowing that you do that, thank you.
Yeah, one of the things that we train our volunteers is we can't fix what happened. We can't cure them, but we can care for them. And one of the ways is we provide what we call emotional first aid, EFA, and we train our volunteers on those skills, those 5 EFA skills. And primarily, so we provide emotional first aid as well as practical support for them on scene to really empower them and give them a sense of some modicum of control, right? Giving them information. We talked about that earlier today. Information is a bit of control, so a lot of what we do, we're those information advocates for them, as well as providing that emotional support, that kind, caring, compassionate presence that our volunteers have for our clients.
Now, do you see in the case, oftentimes when people experience trauma, it's the fight or flight, but I know there's also the freeze reaction. I imagine that oftentimes we see people that really have no idea which direction to go. And I imagine that's something that your volunteers and yourself have to be very adept at reading what these people need.
Exactly. It's quite a bit of what we do. And what we all know, and I'm sure that you've witnessed this yourself, everyone grieves differently.
Absolutely.
Everyone goes through the process differently. And, you know, there are the 5 stages of grief, but there's no order to those stages. And maybe someone gets stuck in the anger phase, and you know, someone else gets stuck, you know, in the grieving stage. I mean, there's so many different phases, and you can bounce around between the two in a matter of minutes, in a matter of hours, in a matter of weeks. So there's no pattern or rhyme or reason to it.
Yes.
But it's looking for those verbal cues, those physical, verbal and nonverbal cues of our clients. Are they sitting off in a corner by themselves, not wanting to talk? Sometimes people talk the whole time. You know, they're elevated, or they can be down here. Some people are doers. They need something to do. They need a task, and they want to do something. You know, some will just sit and cry the whole time. So there's no way to know what we're walking into until we get in there and we sit down with our clients and spend that time with them.
And I think that's one thing that we find too, that you touched on, that grief and associated trauma with any type of death is so individual. Things that certain people can handle, they really become deeply, they deeply affect others. And like you said, we see there's no way to tell. And even when there is an unexpected death, or a death that is perhaps not unexpected, we still see trauma and grief with any type of death. And that's one thing for us in the funeral industry, is that we have to remove ourselves from any position of judgment and just look at what we can do to help the people as individuals, because it is so individual, both grieving and trauma. And I understand about the stages of death. It's not a test where you go through one and you check it off and then you're done. Sometimes there's no time limit either.
Correct.
So what are the qualifications that you look for in somebody that wants to become a part of your volunteer program?
For our volunteers, I think the main qualities in the volunteer that we look for are kind, caring, and compassionate. Bottom line. Someone who has the ability to sit with someone in their deepest, darkest moments without taking control and taking over and saying, this is the way I would do it, so you should do this, and this in this order. We sit with our clients and we allow our clients to guide us through the process. We are simply there to meet their needs. So those are the personal qualities, characteristics that we look for in our volunteers. But administratively, there are no requirements. We don't require degrees or any special training other than the training we give them. They are required to have a valid driver's license, current insurance, a working car, and a cell phone that accepts data, and the ability to navigate the web to fill out reports and access information and resources that their clients might need.
And what kind of training do you provide for your volunteers?
Great question. We have a 39 hours of classroom training that we provide over the course of a 10-day period of time. We then have a 3-month field training period, sort of probationary period after that, if you will, where they are paired up with veteran volunteers on scene, just to see if we're a good fit for them, if they're a good fit for us. We talk a lot about death during our training and prepare them for what may happen on scene and things they might see on scene, something they might encounter. But sometimes once our volunteers actually go on scene and they're dealing and working with other people's emotions, which are very heavy, sometimes they feel, once in a while they'll say, we'll have a volunteer that'll say, it's just not for me, I just can't, I'm not ready to do this work, or I don't think I can do this work. So that 3-month probationary period is a good time for them to learn that about themselves as well.
I think that's really important. Oftentimes we don't know if we can handle something, or if we're going to be good at something until we're in that situation. And we may have the best intentions. I know we have people that want to do certain aspects of our job, and it turns out that, well, maybe that's not really what they're good at. But being kind and compassionate, and I imagine being a very good listener is something. You're talking about the nonverbal cues. That's so important. And I know you had told me earlier that you provide training for groups, a shorter duration, like a day-long training.
Correct.
I think, well, my opinion with what's going on in the world these days, I think that should be something that everyone takes, because right now there's been nothing like this pandemic and having death as a topic in the forefront in living memory. No one I have talked to, with the exception of veterans, but that was generally limited to a certain group of people. Cross-culturally, there's no age limit. This has affected everyone. And I think there has been associated trauma within our society because of that. So again, I'm just really, I'm so grateful for you guys. It's just, it's a wonderful thing to know that there are people like yourself out there. That's
like my volunteers.
And your volunteers, how many volunteers do you have?
Right now we have 74 volunteers.
Wow.
Throughout the county. We service quite a large geographical area in San Diego County. Pretty much most every area except for San Diego Police Department, their jurisdiction. They have their own internal crisis response team, and there are a couple of other communities that do as well. But for the most part, we serve quite a large area in San Diego County. We have 3 separate teams so that we can meet those needs quickly. We have a response time of about 20 minutes, 20 to 25 minutes. So we want to be able to get there and be with those families as quickly as possible.
That's really wonderful.
Yeah.
So if someone was interested in volunteering, how would they reach out to you? How would they contact you?
They can go to our website, which is tipsandiego.org. On the upper left-hand corner, there's a link that says Want to Volunteer. You click on that. It'll take you, scroll down the page, and you can see all of the 2022 training academies that we have set up. You can see the specific dates and times for each of those classes, and there's an online application.
Okay.
Yeah, our next one is starting March 2nd, as a matter of fact, in La Mesa.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so very soon.
Well, Sher, thank you so much for coming down here and spending some time with us.
My pleasure.
This is just makes me feel a little better about the world, knowing that there are people like you to be with people in times of crisis. It's always a difficult thing, and doubly so when you think about going through it alone.
Mm-hmm.
So that gives me hope, and that's the most important.
And I always think about, I mean, we only get called on so many calls, but I often think about what if we weren't there? I can't imagine someone going through this process without us there. And I've worked with such an incredible group of volunteers that they will drop whatever they're doing just to be there because they don't want someone to go through this alone either. So it really is remarkable group of people.
Well, it's really an honor to meet you.
Well, thank you.
And thank you so much for
the invitation.
That you do.
Yes, thank you.
So if you have any questions or you would like further information, you can reach out to info@funeralsyourway.com. And what is the address again?
tipsandiego.org.
Either one of those. And thank you, everybody. Take care of yourselves. And just remember, there are people like Sher out there if you need them. And that always makes us feel better, just knowing they're there. Take care. Safe travels.